Good evening, Clarence Tong here. Thank you for joining our March ADC livestream program. Just 1 week from today, on Monday, March 8th, candidates will be filing for the 2021 Democratic primary election, which will be held on Tuesday, June 8th. You may know that we have very consequential state and local elections this year, and I find it incredibly encouraging for our party to see such a large and diverse field of Democrats stepping up to run at all levels, and I believe you will as well when you learn about them in the coming months. We will need all the help we can get to ensure that Virginia and Alexandria continues to benefit from Democratic leadership, which has allowed for progress in so many areas of our lives, from COVID recovery and healthcare to climate change to LGBT and voting rights. You know how hard we worked to get here, and we cannot afford to go back now. To quickly recap, all candidates seeking the Democratic nomination must file with the Alexandria Democratic Committee by presenting completed paperwork during the campaign filing period between noon on Monday, March 8th and 5 p.m. on Thursday, March 25th. These documents include declaration of candidacy, petitions verified by the City of Alexandria's Office of Voter Registration and Elections, and the receipt of filing fee. It is very important that any candidate that wants to file at noon on March 8th submit their petitions for verification by the City of Alexandria's Office of Voter Registration Elections. That's at 132 North Royal Street by noon tomorrow, Tuesday, March 2nd, as specified in our candidate instructions. Here in Virginia, ballot order of candidates is determined by the order that the candidates file. So to facilitate an orderly and fair process, the ADC has set times on Monday, March 8th for candidates to file if they wish to participate in a drawing for the top positions on the June ballots. Any candidates that file their paperwork after this will be listed in the order they file their paperwork until 5 p.m. on March 25th. So candidates for mayor and city council are asked to arrive at the ADC office at 618 North Washington Street at noon, Commonwealth's attorney and sheriff at 2 p.m., and finally the House of Delegates at 3 p.m. Finally, I wanted to share a few important resources you can find, including complete candidate filing instructions on the ADC website, specific candidate bulletins and instructions on the Virginia Board of Election website, or you can contact the City of Alexandria's registrar office with any additional questions. Before we introduce the guest speakers for tonight, I wanted to make a few additional ADC announcements. Next Monday, March 8th, will be a very busy day for the ADC. In addition to processing the candidate filings that I mentioned in the afternoon, we will be also holding a business meeting starting at 7:30 p.m. At this meeting, we will be voting in new members, discussing and hopefully approving our 2021 ADC budget. We'll be considering pending resolutions, and there will be time for candidate introductions and also other announcements. I also wanted to share some very exciting news that the first event of the year is the 7th almost annual ADC straw poll, which will be held on Monday, April 5th. Since this is our local election year, we'll be focusing the straw poll on the Alexandria mayor and city council elections. The event will be taking the place of our monthly live stream program, which you're watching now, and it will be free to participate. So I hope you can join us and invite your friends and neighbors as well. Tonight, we will continue our programming to allow you to hear directly from Democratic candidates running for statewide offices. Our first guest speaker tonight is former Governor Terry McAuliffe. Terry served as the Commonwealth of Virginia's 72nd governor from 2014 until 2018. And during his tenure, Governor McAuliffe helped bring over 200,000 good-paying jobs and expanded opportunities for all Virginians. Among his proudest accomplishments was successfully restoring voting rights for more than 200,000 Virginians who can now participate in our democracy. Terry also has a long history in Virginia and national politics. He's a former chair of the DNC and has also served as the co-chair for President Bill Clinton's 1996 campaign and Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. And for the last number of years, Terry has worked to build party infrastructure that has led to flipping and keeping the Commonwealth blue. And since leaving office, he's worked hard to campaign for Democratic candidates across Virginia, including doing several events here with us here in Alexandria. So welcome back, Terry. Thank you so much for joining the ADC tonight.
Clarence, thank you. And to the Alexandria Dems, great honor. In fact, I remember one of my last events, we did an event late October before we all had to stay home. So it is great to be with everybody again. An honor, very proud. Clarence, you're exactly right. This is a big, important election coming up. We have made huge gains in Virginia. But I also want to thank everybody for working so hard to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. Nothing more important for the sake of our country. And many of the Alexandria Dems were really leaned in hard. Let me just, first of all, say thank you. I would also say in that regard, Clarence, you're right. We can't go backwards. So for the last 4 years, Donald Trump has been a big driver of the Democratic Party turnout. Donald Trump is gone, and he's not president, and we have got to get those voters out, and we've got to have a huge win, not only at the governor's race, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and then, of course, we've got to keep the House of Delegates. We're probably going to have to watch about 10 seats in the House of Delegates. We cannot go back. I was governor with a Republican legislature. We don't ever want to go back. So that's why this election is really so important. I announced my candidacy, as most of you know, on December 9th. We came out with a big, bold vision of where we needed Virginia to go to deal with the COVID crisis. How do we rebuild? How do we make sure that Virginia leads the country out of this horrible COVID pandemic, and we build an economy that's equitable and really lifts everybody up? I'm very proud. I announced with my co-chairs, Senate Pro Tem Louise Lucas, the mayor of Richmond, LeVar Stoney, and of course, our House Majority Leader, Charnel Herring, is one of my co-chairs of my campaign from Alexandria. I'm so proud of her. And also, I want to thank Senator George Barker, Senator Dick Saslaw, Senator Adam Eben, who are endorsers and really key parts of my campaign as we go forward. I've had endorsements now from all 133 cities and counties all over the Commonwealth of Virginia. I have the most General Assembly folks who have endorsed me. 100 educators have endorsed. We've got a huge grassroots operation because people are excited. They know we got to go big, we got to go bold. And with COVID, folks, we cannot tinker around the edges. And we can't go back to be doing the way things used to be done. We got to think out of the box. We got to be big, we got to be bold, and we got to be willing to take action. And now with the Democratic legislature, we can do these. I opened up my campaign on education. I think, as you all know, last time when I walked into office, I inherited the largest deficit in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Very proud I left the biggest surplus 4 years later. But when I walked into a $2.4 billion deficit, I knew we had to go big. So I put together $1 billion for education, largest investment ever, because that's how we had to rebuild and recruit businesses to come to the Commonwealth of Virginia. We got rid of 5 OSOLs. We did all of our high schools. We really moved Virginia forward. But now with a Democratic legislature, we really need to take it to the next level. On education, I'm calling for a $2 billion investment in education, the largest, of course, in the history of our state. Why? Number one, let's take average teacher pay. Virginia ranks 50th out of 50 states. We are dead last. We're 50th. And in fact, we're behind the District of Columbia. That is a disgrace for the 9th wealthiest state in the United States of America to be 50th out of 50 on average teacher pay when you compare it to the average pay of the people who live in your state. We need to fix that. Today, you can go to Maryland, you could go to Delaware, or you could go to Pennsylvania and make $10,000 to $20,000 more per teacher. And you wonder why we're down 1,000 teachers right now in Virginia. You want to recruit the businesses of the 21st century, build the new gig economy, you got to do it through an educated workforce. And that takes your educators. So finally, we need to lean in big on taking care of teacher pay. I talk about fully funding for the 41,000 3- and 4-year-old at-risk children we have in Virginia to make sure that they get a pre-K education. I talk about broadband access, something I've talked to President Biden at length about. We need every child in Virginia to get access to broadband. Now with online learning, is it fair that in a place like Bedford County, with online learning, they don't have access to the internet? They don't have capacity in the pipe so they can get online and learn? How is that fair? It's not. It's inequitable. And that's what we have to build, an equitable education system that works for everyone. I'm calling for the Lucy Sims Scholarship so that if you're willing to go teach in a high demand area here in Virginia for 5 years, we, the state, will pay for your tuition, room, and board. First state to do that. That's how we can get a more diversified educator base here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Working with our HBCUs and others, it will be open to everybody to actually do it. It is so important if we're going to build that educated workforce of the future. I've called for massive protections against gun violence. We need an assault weapon ban here. As you all remember, when I ran last time, I am the first Southern governor, first Southern candidate for governor to get an F rating from the NRA. And I was very proud of it. And I had to veto a lot of the crazy, insane bills that my Republican legislators actually put forth. I talk a lot about criminal justice reform. As was mentioned early on by Clarence, as you all know, I restored more felon rights than any governor in the history of America. And what happened? The Republicans sued me, took me to the Virginia Supreme Court, sued me again, sued me for contempt of court, and ultimately, guess what? I won. And today there are 200,000 people that have the right to vote. I also leaned in. I had the most pardons before of any governor in Virginia history, 267. I mean, we had a racist criminal justice system. I think of Lenny Singleton, a young African-American kid who went to a party one Saturday night, got addicted to cocaine. Over the next 6 nights, he stole about $50 for his habit. Nobody was ever injured. For $511 was his total theft, $511. His sentence was 2 life sentences plus 110 years. Lenny Singleton served 23 years in prison until I got elected governor and was able to pardon him. I could give you 266 other stories. So leaning in, fixing our criminal justice system, I banned the box on state applications. I banned the Confederate flag from the Virginia license plate. I reduced our juvenile detention population by 2/3. And that's what we have to do. We need to make sure every child gets a nutritious meal, something I smartly put my wife in charge of, 13 million more meals served my last year in office. And then the other big issue I think we need to lean in on is affordable housing. Specifically, you think of Alexandria. And first of all, hats off to all the people in Alexandria for the great work that goes on there. I was there the other day at Carpenter Shelter with the executive director there, Shannon Steen, and they took me around, and then I went next door to the Bloom, which is affordable housing. It was unbelievable what you have been able to do. So thank all the folks in Alexandria. But today we have 260,000 Virginians today under threat of evictions. Today, you think about it, the 10 top states in America for evictions, Virginia has 5 of the 10. So more money for the Virginia Housing Trust Fund, leaning in on the zoning permitting process so we can encourage more folks to actually build affordable housing. So that's why I'm excited about running for governor again. I got recruited by many of the members of the Black Caucus who came up to see me up here and said, Terry, we need you back in again. We've built a huge, broad coalition of all folks from all over the Commonwealth. It is time to go big. It is time to be bold. It is not time to tinker around the edges. Sleep when you're dead. Let's go. I want to see Virginia leading the country again.
Thank you, Governor. Do you have time for a few quick questions?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. And just for all those that are following along with us here tonight, thanks for joining us. And if you're on Facebook Live, please feel free to ask a question through our chat. But I've got two to start. Governor, we've got lots of political wonks, policy wonks that are part of our membership. One question that I think you could provide a special perspective on is what is the main difference now as you're running for governor versus when you ran back in 2013 or even the first time when you ran in 2009? What have you observed as being the main differences?
Well, we are a different state than we were when I ran first time. And listen, I ran, as you all know, a unique campaign for governor. I was the first candidate or elected official in the South to come out for marriage equality. Nobody had done that before I came out. I'm the first Democratic nominee for governor to get an F rating from the NRA. And I told women I'd be a brick wall to protect their rights because the Virginia Republican legislature had passed the horrible transvaginal bill, which made Virginia an absolute disgrace in the United States of America. And they had put the trap laws in to shut down our 16 reproductive clinics, women's reproductive clinics here in Virginia. I got elected, as you know, I replaced the board and I kept all 16 women's clinics open. I had a record number of vetoes, as you all know, 120. I think almost double any governor in the history of the state. And I never lost a veto. I was 120-0. But anti-gay, anti-women, pro-gun, anti-environment, you know the whole deal. I was able to stop that. Now we have a Democratic legislature. So it's not like defense of stopping their action. It's now going offensive to take Virginia to the next level. I just don't want to see us, as I say, tinker around the edges, do the same old thing. We can't leave our teachers out there. We've got to make sure every child gets an equitable, quality, world-class education. Those are the things that, that's why I'm excited doing it. So the big change is, and listen, I fought like a dog for Medicaid expansion. The Speaker of the House told me on my inauguration, you'll never get it. I will never give you a vote. But that didn't stop me for 1 second. And I went out, did my own with state funding, got pregnant women, low-income pregnant women, dental care for the first time in their lives. I got tens of thousands of people in health care. But at the end, guess what? I was able to put the pieces in place for the hospital provider tax, which created the vehicle for when Hala and others finally came in to be able to get that done. And I embedded about $420+ million in the budget on the way out the door. So they either raised taxes or they were stuck with my budget. So we ended up winning at the end of the day. But, I feel bad that for 6 or 7 years, our state did not bring back the $2.2 billion a year. But that's the small-mindedness of these Republicans. And they're all trying to out-Trump each other right now, folks. But don't think for a second that they can't win these offices because turnout drops dramatically. Trump is not here. Democrats a little comfortable, we're going to win. And I'm telling you, we don't want to wake up the next day after the election and everything we worked hard for is gone. That is a real possibility.
Yeah, no, that's something that we're certainly very sensitive to and working very hard to avoid. Just a follow-up question. Governor, you mentioned that Virginia is a very different place than it was back in 2009 or even 2013. And now we have a very diverse field running for governor, running for lieutenant governor, running for attorney general. There's emphasis on, being more inclusive as well. There are, women and people of color in the field that you're running in. Why should Democratic voters elect you?
Well, I think hopefully whoever asked the question was just listening for the last 20 minutes of my plan that I just rolled out. And I don't have time tonight to go through everything, but if you go to Terry for Virginia, I have very detailed plans on every one of these. And if any of you know anything about me, and Hala knows it for sure, if I tell you I'm going to do something, you can take it to the bank. So when I ran last time, I had I was the most progressive governor in the history of our state. And I had a tough Republican legislature, but we beat them. But when I made the campaign plan, if you went to the governor's website, every single day was a scorecard, a report card, and check marks if I had accomplished what I promised to do. So why me? And listen, I'm a happy warrior. I've fought for this party my whole life. I don't ever speak ill of Democrats. I've never done it. I'm not going to start now. People want you to tell them what you are going to do for them. So I'm trying here to tell you, here's what I'd like to do for you, and people get to vote the way they want. Clarence.
Right. That's absolutely right. I mean, that's the beauty of our democracy. I have a few, I think we probably only get to one or two of them, policy-oriented questions from our members. Marta Shands asked, President Biden, he made a huge commitment to address the climate crisis. So the question is, what is your plan to address climate to reduce carbon emissions in the Commonwealth?
Well, we've made great progress here. By 2050. We want to be carbon free here. We've made great. This is something I leaned in hard as governor. I remind you, I did the first offshore utility wind project in the history of the United States of America. I did the largest solar field in Accomack County with Amazon. I took solar. I took our megawatts of solar from 8 to 623 megawatts in my 4 years. Increased our renewable energy jobs by about 80,000 when I was governor. That's the future. And so we need to continue to lean in. And the other piece I think we have to really work on is we got to create those jobs, those renewable energy jobs here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I saw the other day that New Jersey announced a huge wind manufacturing turbine facility at their port. That shouldn't be in New Jersey. That should be here in Virginia. But, we've made great progress. And now that we have a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor, I mean, the last 2 years have been spectacular. I had to use executive authority. They wouldn't pass any of my, that. I was the first Southern governor to go into RGGI, the regional greenhouse gas. I had to do that through executive order. They weren't going to work with me at all. But, I was able to get a lot of things done. But boy, oh boy, with a Democratic legislature, General Assembly, we can really I want to see Virginia be number one. And now to have a president, unlike what we had before, it wasn't even a president in my mind, but what we had before. And now he's back in the Paris Climate Agreement. He's in this infrastructure bill that he's coming out with in the early summer, $2 to $4 trillion, a lot of money for renewable energy. I mean, it's gonna be exciting. But let me finally say, with that though, we've got to have an educated workforce here. That is why, and you look at my plan here in education, we've got to start teaching these green concepts early in school. We've got to build a workforce, green energy workforce for the future, because the states that actually do that are the states that are going to get those jobs. And we need to shake up our education system. It was built for the Industrial Revolution. Well, guess what? The Industrial Revolution is long over. 80% of the jobs of the future, you're going to need some digital competency. We better start teaching computer digital competency beginning in kindergarten and every single level of schooling through 12th grade. Have to do it. That's how you build that new economy I talk about.
Great. I think we have time for only one additional question, but I'm just going to read two. You can decide how you want to answer them, Governor. The first is from Nancy Morgan. What is your perspective on campaign finance and ethics reform in Virginia? The second question, not related to the first question, is that, with the COVID recovery on so many people's minds right now, and so many businesses, including live events, industries, like venues, just really hard hit. So what does the post-COVID recovery look like here in Virginia? And
that's number one. You remember when I came in office, I had to take over from a governor's administration that was caught in scandal after scandal, if you remember. I'm very proud we did not have one while I was governor. My first executive order as governor within 5 minutes of taking office was to ban any discrimination in the state workforce based on one's sexual orientation. But right after that, executive order number 2, for the first time in Virginia history, I signed an executive order for myself, my family, and everybody in my administration that they had $100 gift ban. And I would have put it at 0, but you go to events, people give you ball caps or t-shirts and so forth. That was the first time that was done. Prior to my administration, if you wanted to go up to the governor and give him $1 million, you could do it. Unbelievable. And, we need to end the loopholes, I would say, and I know Hala agrees with me, for the General Assembly. I think they should apply by the same rules that I put in for myself. There ought to be $100 gift ban. Why are you going in? We need to end that. And the idea that you could use some of your personal campaign money for personal expenses, that's just not fair. So I do think we need to do some changes on that. I made great progress, but, I had a Republican legislature. So I did what I could do through executive order as related to me and, my administration, the people who work for me. Secondly, as I say, building that new COVID economy, it's going to be different than anything we've seen before. 80% of the jobs, as I say, over the course of the next 10 years will be in the digital related space. The gig workers, we've now, people like to work from home. It's going to be totally different. People are not going back to commercial office buildings the way they were. Totally different. We have a leg up here in Virginia. Now, we've fared better in most states in the COVID issue because we're the number 1 state for defense spending, number 1 of all 50 states. We've got 27 military installations. We've got the largest naval base in the world. We have the Pentagon, CA, Quantico, blah, blah, blah. We got it all. Number 2, we have such a gigantic federal workforce. And that's why I was very happy that AFSCME, American Federation of State, Municipal, County Employees, endorsed me this week. And today, actually, the air traffic controllers endorsed me today, actually. But a lot of federal workers, and we haven't had a federal government shutdown. So that has helped boost up the Virginia economy. We've been crippled with tourism and restaurants. So we've got to help these small businesses come back. If you go to my website, I got a whole thing on what we do on small business, micro loan programs, access to capital. We've got to keep these small businesses going. So it's going to be a different economy, but I'm excited. And, as long as we're investing, I'm the one who recruited Nestle Corporation to move out of California. They moved, obviously, to Northern Virginia, Arlington, thousands of new jobs. I wrote the bid for Amazon that was submitted to get Amazon. I knew we were going to win that because of our workforce. And, that's going to be $25,000 average pay, $140,000, and that's only going to grow from there. But we need to make sure, finally, I'd say, we've got to continue to work other parts of it. I was proud as governor that our rural unemployment in rural counties, every single rural county in Virginia when I was governor, almost all of them saw a 50% drop. We've got to make sure that we're expanding out and we're helping all parts of the Commonwealth. That's why broadband, not only important for our students, it's important for our businesses as well. So that's why I'm just saying we don't have time to wait. We got to go big, put out a big marker and say we are going to lead the country. And if we do these things on education and broadband and infrastructure and housing, boy, I feel bad for those other 49 states. But we can't be 50th out of 50 on teacher pay, average teacher pay. That's disgraceful.
Well, Governor, on that note, thanks so much for joining the ADC tonight, and best of luck to you in the final months of the campaign.
Well, let me just say as I go, thank you and all of you who are on this Zoom call. You're the ones that make the calls, and non-COVID, you're doing the door-to-door. You are the folks that actually make it happen. So let me just say thank you, Clarence and your whole team and everybody on the committee. You're the ones that really make all this happen, and I look forward to working with you. Go forward and sleep when you're dead.
Great. Thank you, Governor. Have a good night.
I'm just a warm-up act for Hala. So.
Yeah, that is right.
All right.
Yes.
Good luck. All right.
Thank you. Our next guest speaker is Delegate Hala Ayala, who's running for Virginia Lieutenant Governor. Hala was born and raised here in Virginia. She is the daughter of a Salvadorian and North African immigrant father and an Irish and Lebanese mother, and really believes in the strength that diversity brings to our future. She went on to build a career while as a single mom. She worked as a cybersecurity specialist at the Department of Homeland Security for over 20 years, and she kind of became really involved in politics in 2017. Helping to organize the Women's March in Washington, which many of us participated in, and was inspired to run for office. So she ran in the 51st House District and won against the Republican incumbent. It's in the suburbs of Prince William County, and now as a member of the Democratic majority, she has worked to help expand Medicaid and raise teacher pay, to pass the ERA, expand background checks for guns, and so much more. So Hala, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Clarence. I didn't think I heard you just yet. I think you were on mute there for a little bit.
Oh, was I?
Yeah. Do you want to just repeat your last sentence? I don't know if anybody else didn't hear you or if it was just on my end. That's why I was like, I can't hear you.
I was just doing an introduction for you. I was talking about how you were working to expand Medicaid and raise teacher pay, pass the ERA, and so much more. So just trying to warm you up.
There you go, Clarence. That is just wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, and good evening, Alexandria Dems. I'm so glad to be joining you today or this evening. I hope you are staying safe and warm. I wish I could be there in person with a lot of you who I know and love. And, we're in this virtual space, which is sometimes a little challenging, but, we have to remain safe as we're navigating this pandemic. For those who aren't familiar with me, I'm Delegate Hala Ayala. I represent Virginia's 51st District, which is in Prince William County, just a short ways away from you. We cover my area is parts of Lake Ridge, Manassas, Dale City, and Nokesville. Like many of you, I got my start in political activism with this gentleman from Chicago. I don't know if you know him. He was a state senator at the time. And then he went on to become a United States senator from Chicago. He had a lot of swag and appeal, and he started to run for president. And, he said, grab your clipboard and sneakers and run like you mean it, run with a heart and passion. And, when I saw Barack Obama speak here in Prince William County, like many of you probably did, at the Fitzner Stadium just down the road from my house, it changed my life. His words just gave me hope and compassion and motivation for our future. And I have to tell you this, that without seeing him, I don't think I would be here today, because that was just my first start into politics. I was a single mother. And as you shared, I am a multiracial daughter of an immigrant who never thought politics would have a place or a space for someone that looked like me. Growing up, I came from Alexandria, actually. My dad helped build Groveton Elementary when it burnt down, or half of it burnt down the second time. And then I was actually part of Alexandria School System's busing, which they put me over into Hayfield, not the Hayfield area, Fort Hunt area. So we moved from Alexandria to Prince William County in '81, and just with a few college credits and government certifications, I went on to build a career in national security, working under the Department of Homeland Security as a cybersecurity specialist. I'm a lifelong Virginia resident. I don't feel like, that, I'm any stranger to many of you, but I love my home. I love Virginia, and I love all it's become, especially since Dems have taken over the House of Delegates. But in 2016, we saw then another phenomenon come through, and it wasn't one that we all wanted to embrace. It was President Trump, or then candidate Trump, become president in 2016. I don't know if many of you remember, I was in fetal position, I think the next day, and felt that I was in a different space or place, that this was not my America, and this was definitely not my Commonwealth. and the rhetoric, and to think that he was going to put our families in cages. He was going to stigmatize and discriminate against LGBTQ members, people of color, and just so many horrific things came out of his 4 years. I just could not sit on the sidelines. So I quit my job with Homeland Security after 16 years as a cyber person, cashed in my 401k, ran for office, and then the rest was sort of history without intending to make it. I was the first Afro-Latina to be elected to the House of Delegates and National Security Cyber Specialist to serve. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. And so when we elected historically 11 women to this body, when we were able to really pass Medicaid expansion for the first time, that we were able to remove barriers to the ballot box. This is the work that we do, raising teacher pay, made Virginia the 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment to enshrine women's equality in the United States Constitution. And if I can take a moment, Clarence, I just want to thank the men and women whose shoulders I stood on, because it took over 100 years to put equity for women in the United States Constitution. And so I couldn't be here without their hard work, sweat, and tears in order for us to get this passed. So I can't wait. Today is the first day of Women's History, where we're celebrating, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that it'll finally be enshrined in the Constitution. We're going to be working on Congress to remove the deadline, as well as the United States Senate and also the archivists. So we're really rooting for Joe Biden to do that this month. I'm running for lieutenant governor because so many Virginians feel excluded from our political process. And we've never in the 400 years, as you heard Governor McAuliffe say, seen history or the availability of history where you have women of color running not only to hold statewide office, but to be able to actually be elected to statewide office. Virginia is the oldest elective body or legislative body. And to say 400 years, we have our first woman speaker, Eileen Fillercorn. To say we have our first African-American majority leader. This says how far behind we are in some of our progress, and that we need to make more and continually lean in and strive to make more. And running for lieutenant governor is not just about the history we can make, but the progress. I promise to fight for every Virginian. I want every Virginian to not only see themselves and their elected official, but know that we have their back. As Chief Deputy Whip, I got things done, like the Clean Economy Act. I did that on the floor last year to make sure we got that across the finish line. I made sure that we were able to get powerful pieces of legislation that you've seen come out of our body this year across the finish line. But right now, we're also juggling not only the process and progress we're making in the General Assembly, but with COVID. COVID has just uncovered the inequities of every Virginian and every individual citizen in this country. We've saw the struggles, and in the wake of this pandemic, it has only heightened some of our inequities. And I understand how fragile lives can be because I know the bridge between struggle and success. Before even thinking about elected office, I didn't think I was even going to live this long. I lost my father very early on to gun violence. He was killed and murdered when I was 2. I was on Medicaid not once, but twice in my life. One which saved my son's life. But there's so many Commonwealth citizens who have been where I've been or are where I have been. And this COVID pandemic has exacerbated this global situation, especially for Black and Brown Virginians. This includes what you just heard earlier about our food inequities, our school and education system. And we need elected officials who are not only think big and bring courageous leadership to Richmond, but to make sure we don't forget anyone so that every, again, Virginian has a seat at the table. We need to build our economy stronger, to continue to expand healthcare and access to infrastructure like broadband and bridging the digital divide. We need support to improve our school system from pre-K to post-secondary and give our students and teachers the tools they need to succeed. We need to reform our criminal justice system. We are taking major steps. And I think as we look towards the 2021 election, just note that out of all the statewide running, I have over a 70% record of passing legislation this year and been graded by PAC. As a chief deputy whip, I facilitated change and made sure we got across the finish line. But I've also made historic change, long lasting. I lobbied to change the Science and Tech Committee to the CTI, which is the Communications Technology. With my cyber background, I wanted to impress upon our digital space and the security and privacy of it. And now with that, we have handled the most historic pieces of legislation, or number of pieces of legislation in this committee. I stand on commissions and Science and Tech Committee, or now CTI, Communication Progress. So I'm not just about tired of doing it. So with that, I hope that every Virginian will not only trust that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, but know I have a proven track record of doing just that. So with that, Clarence, I want to thank you and Alexandria Dems for having me, opening up your hearts, your homes, and your digital spaces to me. And I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Ayala, and thanks for reminding me it's Women's History Month. And I don't know if you can see the picture in the back, but it's got this message: well-behaved women seldom make history.
We don't make history very often.
Yeah, no, but we have made a lot of history in Virginia. So I've got a question for you, delegates, and there might be some others that come in the chat in a little bit as well. So as Lieutenant Governor, what would your top 3 issue priorities be?
Sure.
Did you hear the question?
Well, you know what? I think that is a very good question. I think we're going to continue to work on broadband expansion,
Delegate
especially
Ayala,
to
can you hear me?
between your question and my answer.
I think you're muted.
Did you hear me?
Okay. Okay, if sorry, there's a little bit of an issue with the feed, but can you hear me now? Okay, that's perfect. I heard that people could hear you just fine. I had a little bit of a lag. Next question from Marta Shands has to do with what you do to help address the climate crisis.
Well, I've done one of the big pieces of legislation that you've seen come out of the General Assembly was huge last year. I was proud to be chief co-patron on that bill, which was the Clean Economy Act, VCEA. This was going to reshape Virginia's system of energy and regulation. And so I was proud to be part of that. Zero carbon by 2050. This is the foundation. So this was a historic piece of legislation. It was, I would say, about 60 pages long, which outlines, the 5,200 megawatts of offshore wind, the 16,000 megawatts of solar, and 2,700 megawatts of energy storage to be in public interest, and direct the State Corporation Commission to give us a stamp of approval. And it has build outs, right? And so this was one of the biggest pieces of legislation that I was proud to be a part of, and will continue to champion clean air and clean water. There is a lot that we need to do to continue to work on clean energy within this within this state. And I think that we've made strides in those areas, especially between last year and this year, pieces of legislation. So we will continue to champion that. As Lieutenant Governor, when those pieces of legislation come in the body, it is going to be my job possibly to be the casting vote or tie-breaking vote. So I will continue to support that and work towards making Virginia a safe and long-term breathable, clean air, clean water environment.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Ayala. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's a little bit of lag, so if I pause, please forgive me.
Yeah, I think we're actually at time, and from what I can see, we don't have any other questions in the chat. So really pleased that you could join us here tonight and to share your story and share your enthusiasm for our Commonwealth and our people, and wish you the best of luck on the campaign trail. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, keep watching us. Yesterday this weekend we passed marijuana legislation and also expungement. And so these are big strides for the Commonwealth. And we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that we evolve these pieces of legislation as we move forward. And this is a proud moment, especially for your fellow Alexandrian, Leader Herring, who worked countless hours and should be celebrated for her hard work. She's a leading champion on that. And I'm just so proud that not only is she my mentor, but has helped me grow in the body. So thank you so much for having me. Be well, be blessed.
Thanks so much. And we'll be sure to thank Leader Herring as well for all of her efforts. Hopefully we'll have her again.
Thank you.
Soon.
Bye, Clarence.
Thanks so much. So our third guest speaker tonight is Sean Perryman, who's also running for Lieutenant Governor. Sean is a lawyer, a former Hill staffer, an advocate who has spent his entire life fighting for equity, fairness, and transparency in government. He served as the youngest president of the Fairfax County NAACP, the largest chapter in Virginia, and as the president of the Fairfax County NAACP, Sean was active in addressing issues of racism in Virginia public schools. He led the advocacy effort on the renaming of Robert E. Lee High School to become John R. Lewis High School. Sean has been a leader on addressing the school to pipeline, school to prison pipeline, affordable housing, and worker protections during COVID. Welcome, Sean. Our mutual friend, Ricky Lee, had actually very great things to say about you. So please tell us about your campaign for Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, Clarence, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. I'm usually in Fairfax County where I reside, but I'm in Scottsville, Virginia. So if the internet is not great, blame my Airbnb because I'm on the road for the campaign. But I'm so glad that I got to join my friends from Alexandria today. As Clarence said, my name is Sean Perryman. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor here in Virginia. And I always share my unlikely story of running for Lieutenant Governor. We put it on our campaign video, which has over 800,000 views on Twitter and went a bit viral. But what essentially I was first my family to go to college, first to go to law school at Vanderbilt University, and then I was practicing for a number of years when I was asked to represent Donald Trump. And I share that story because I understood then, even as Donald Trump was a candidate, what Trumpism represented and what that meant, and I wanted no part of it. So I quit my job. And at the time, it felt like a very crazy decision, but it was a first step in a path to where I am today. Of course, Donald Trump went on to win the presidency, but I had done a job in between time working for Congressman Elijah Cummings on the House Oversight Committee. And working for Congressman Cummings was a great privilege of my life. I got to advise the Democratic members of that committee. But when Donald Trump became president, I wanted to get more involved in my local community. So I went two places. I went to the Fairfax Democratic Committee and I went to the Fairfax NAACP. I was lucky enough to be elected to leadership to both of those organizations. And with the Fairfax NAACP, we worked to get Democrats elected not only here in Fairfax, but throughout Northern. And then with the NAACP, I became the youngest president in our 102-year history, growing the organization from a little under 400 members to 1,400 members. But what I was doing with that organization, when you mentioned the John Lewis name change, right? You're changing it from Robert E. Lee to John Lewis, getting involved in the school system, reducing the arrests by 60% in the 10th largest county in the country. These were all issues where it felt a little bit intractable or impossible at times. But we learned that by banding together, forming coalitions, that we could win on these issues. So that was the big takeaway from those. But what I'm hoping to do with our statewide candidacy right here is to take that to the state level. When the pandemic hit, we saw the state Senate kill things like paid sick leave. We saw them kill things like ending qualified immunity. So what I'm hoping to do is take my experiences both in law and in policy and go to statewide level and be a progressive voice in the state Senate. You know, you mentioned Ricky Lee. I know him from my career. After I left the Hill, I work in tech policy now, where I sit on an FCC advisory committee advising on issues like digital empowerment and broadband. And so many people that I talk to throughout Virginia are facing the same issues. We often think there's a big divide between rural Virginia and Northern Virginia, Richmond. But these issues of having a wage, a living wage, and having access to education, these are all issues that we're all facing as Virginians. And we need people that are speaking to this. So this is what I'm hoping to do with the campaign. Ever since we entered in October, we've run a campaign that's really values-driven, not accepting any corporate donations, running really on hard issues and substantive campaign that is trying to talk about what's holding us back. You heard about the cannabis legalization that went through the Senate. We haven't actually legalized cannabis. It won't be legal till 2024. Hopefully the governor can fix the bill that went through, but what we need to do, the status quo for many Virginians, especially Black Virginians, because they are arrested at a disproportionate rate, is still the same here. And until we address that, until we address those equities, we can't pretend that we can't take a victory lap and pretend that we passed legalizing cannabis here in the Commonwealth. So these are the sort of issues that I'm leading with as Lieutenant Governor. And I hope that many of you who are listening will join us on this journey as we try to get these progressive values to statewide level. I think we have a real opportunity here where the Republicans are running on things like ending cancel culture. We're running on things like making your life better through broadband, through more money in your pocket, through work protections. So that's really what is at the heart of this campaign. And I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me. And of course, I'll take any questions that you may have. But thank you for having me. And of course, the website is Perryman.
Great. Thank you, Sean. In addition to addressing the broadband issue, which we clearly need here as well as in rural areas, what are your top priorities that you'd like to achieve as Lieutenant Governor?
Sure. Well, besides broadband, if I had to name three others, I mentioned the legalization issue. Whoever gets into office is going to be overseeing what a regulated market looks like. It has to be done in an equitable way that includes automatic expungement, that allows entrepreneurs of all levels to get in, and that really remedies or addresses the drug war that we've been fighting for so many decades. So that would be one of the top issues for me. In addition to that, look at modernizing our digital infrastructure. I think a lot of us look at these issues as siloed off. When we looked at the unemployment insurance, for instance, so many people had trouble accessing their unemployment insurance, and that was because we haven't invested in the digital infrastructure. When we look at the vaccination rollout, just 2 weeks ago, we finally got a centralized system that's not done county by county. So these are issues that we desperately need to address. But then the other issue that I would say is campaign finance reform. So often here in Virginia, what's held us back is being wedded to corporate interests. We have a contribution system here that has no limits. And so while we focus on some certain companies, like some people focus on Dominion, I don't take money from Dominion, but I don't think that is the root cause of it. I think the issue is that we have no contribution limits at all. And then also think about this. In Virginia right now, someone can get a $100,000 check from anyone, put that in their campaign account, and then withdraw it and go buy a Ferrari and drive off. This is something that's completely illegal here. We need to address these things. So I think campaign finance reform would be at the top of the list.
I think we've got one additional question that came in from Marta. No, I think I can hear you, Sean. Hopefully you can hear me as well. The question is like, we have a climate crisis here in our country and in the world right now, and it's a top priority for President Biden, and I think states have to do their part as well. What ideas do you have on that front? Sean, did you hear the question? Well, maybe Sean. Okay. Well, it looks like we've lost Sean. Maybe he'll be back. But for now, I think we will actually move to our final speaker of the evening, who is Delegate Jay Jones, running for Virginia Attorney General. Jay is a lifelong resident of Norfolk and was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 2017 to represent the 89th district. In the House of Delegates, he's fought to expand Medicaid, increase the minimum wage, fight for teacher pay raises, and provide a progressive energy and environmental policies that will improve the lives of all Virginians while preserving our air, water, and land. He's also championed the Ashanti Alert, a bill to establish a missing persons alert for adults in the Commonwealth. And he's worked on a number of other legislation to address poverty in urban areas and achieve a more equitable regulatory regime for utilities and many other things. So welcome, Jay. Please tell us about why you're running for Attorney General.
Well, good evening, Clarence, and good evening to the Alexandria Dems. It's a joy to be here with you guys tonight. And I know you've sat through a whole bunch of candidate speeches, and so I'll try not to belabor the point tonight, but I just wanted to come and introduce myself, talk about our campaign for Attorney General. And I think it's really important to me to talk about my family, my story, because my candidacy is informed by my line, my family, the folks that I come from. I'm really fortunate to be able to trace my lineage back 5 generations on both sides to slaves right here in the American South, including Virginia. And I often think about what my ancestors would think about their descendant having the opportunity to become the first Black Attorney General in Virginia's history. My grandfather, Hillary H. Jones, a lifelong Norfolk resident, just like myself, born here in 1923, left for college and law school, had to go to law school in the North because they didn't allow Black folks to get legal educations here in the South back in the 40s, and came back to Norfolk. And I often wish that I could ask him why he came back to his hometown at a time that it wasn't particularly friendly or welcoming to folks who looked like us. And I think it's because he had this deep commitment to not only his hometown, but to service. When they came back in 1950, my grandmother, my grandfather got very involved in the civil rights movement as an attorney and as a mother who just wanted to have a better life for her children. And they had my dad and my uncle integrate an elementary school here in Norfolk in 1960. And I drive by it all the time, and I can't imagine what a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old had to go through to do that. And so every time I get frustrated, every time I feel dejected, I think about what my ancestors have gone through. But this is truly a candidacy that's generations in the making. I'm born and raised here in Norfolk, went to William & Mary for undergrad, UVA for law school. I've been a practicing trial attorney, so I'm in court 3 or 4 times a week, each and every week. But now we're campaigning full time for Attorney General. We've done some tremendous things here in Virginia over the last 4 years. I'm so proud of what we've accomplished in the General Assembly. But as Virginia and this country head into a new decade, 2021, we have a chance to really reorient ourselves, to really redefine ourselves about what we highlight, value, and prioritize. And I hope to be a part of that. And we've been running for Attorney General now for the better part of a year. And as we've been able to travel throughout this Commonwealth, physically in 2019 and distantly and safely in 2020, a lot of things kind of bubble up to the top, but there are a few that folks really sort to hit on. And one of those things is justice reform. For me, that's been a passion, a priority since I've been in the legislature. I like to say I'm not new to this, I'm true to this, but I do believe it's important to have folks who are in office who have lived experiences that lend themselves to the roles that we're looking for and we're voting for. And I think my experience, not only as a Black man in Virginia, but as a legislator who has prioritized criminal justice reform and taken on the hard fights, including this fight to end qualified immunity, makes me well suited to be the face of the state's justice system. And I think it's also important to think about who better to be the face of the state's justice system than someone who looks like what that system has oppressed for 400 years and counting. Energy in the environment also comes up, and Clarence mentioned that in the introduction. I think I've become one of the more vocal critics of Dominion Energy and their regulatory monopoly that they've got here in Virginia. And I've been fighting tooth and nail to try to make sure that Dominion doesn't run roughshod over the ratepayers and over the consumers who are us. And I will tell everybody on this call tonight that Dominion Energy's worst nightmare is Jay Jones as Attorney General, because we will fight tooth and nail to make sure that we get a fair deal, to make sure that those folks aren't getting over on everyday Virginians who are just trying to make ends meet. Your utility bill, your energy bill shouldn't be what you spend most of your monthly paycheck on. And we want to work to fix that. And then another big thing that's important to me, my grandmother was a member of the teachers union here in Norfolk, is labor protections. Wage theft, worker misclass. I'm so disappointed to understand and know that there are so many of these incidences just piling up on desks in the AG's office collecting dust. We are the best state for business, and that's wonderful. But if we aren't the best state for workers, if we don't have the strongest workforce, what are we even here for? And so as AG, we will prioritize labor. We will make sure that we are fighting each and every day for our hardworking Virginians who put in an honest day's work, because that's what we're all about here in Virginia. But more importantly than that, right, prioritizing civil rights, making sure that people feel protected in this moment in Virginia's history. The things that we've seen over the last year or so have really brought some things to light that I think have really forced us to think and make us understand that no matter who you are or where you come from, we want to lift you up and we want to protect you. And so we will make sure that the Office of Civil Rights and the Attorney General's office not only has the manpower, but has the teeth and has the enforcement power to go after folks and bad actors, institutional racism, not only in law enforcement, but in our financial institutions and beyond. Those are things that I think everybody is craving here in this new Virginia decade, in this moment. My father and I often talk about rising to meet moments. And in 2021, I think we have that opportunity. We've got an incredible slate of folks who are running, and we have an opportunity to really change the direction of this state for the better. This place is rapidly diversifying, 8.5 million and growing, and it's continually changing. And I think we have an opportunity to highlight, elevate, and really prioritize some of those voices that have often been left behind. And I hope to be a part of that as a statewide candidate here in 2021 for Attorney General. I hope that we will be able to continue this conversation over the next few months. And I hope I can earn your support in the June 8th Democratic primary. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys tonight. Clarence, hopefully you have a time for a question or two. But I look forward again to getting to know you all. If you like what you hear tonight, please go to our website, jayjones.com, JAYJONES. And I look forward again to the chance to continue the conversation and spend some time with you guys, not just tonight, but for the next few months.
Great. Thank you, Jay. I think you really were straight and to the point, and there were a lot of good things that you mentioned in your comments. I did get one question so far from the chat, and again, if anybody who's participating still has any questions, please feel free to add it to the Facebook Live chat. This is from Alex Spread. He's a disability advocate. Jay, how do you plan to help autistic folks in the justice system so they don't end up like Matthew Rushin?
So that's a great question. And I know Alex, and I know his passion and advocacy for the disability community. And I'm very well aware of the story of Matthew Rushin. And I think all of that sort of falls into that Office of Civil Rights that I was talking about. I had a bill this year that would have created that office in the AG's purview with robust authority and teeth to go after incidences of discrimination, of racism. Unfortunately, was killed for purely political reasons. But as AG, we'll continue to prioritize those who are left behind and often forgotten, and make sure that we're using the full weight of the office to go protect folks. At its core, at its root, the AG's office is a consumer protection, a civil protection office. And so for me, that will always be a priority. I often talk about how we have to go meet people where they are. And part of what we are talking about in our campaign is establishing field offices all across this Commonwealth to really go into our communities and make sure that people understand what the office can do for them. And we have to go and understand what is affecting communities, not just where we are, but all across the Commonwealth. And so whether it's disability, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual orientation, my office will continue to fight each and every day for those folks and make sure that their civil rights are not being violated, and that everything that they are to be afforded under the laws and protections of the Commonwealth of Virginia, they will have. And I promise that I will continue to work on that each and every day.
Great. Thank you, Jay. I've got, I don't know if there's any other questions in the chat, but I do have one for you.
Sure.
You've only been in the General Assembly 4 years, but had a very impressive legislative record. What would you say to critics that don't think that you have enough experience to be Attorney General?
Well, Clarence, I would say to those critics, if my lived experience, my experience as a trial attorney, and my time in the General Assembly doesn't qualify me to go right now, I don't know what does. I think all of those things taken together puts us in a position where if the election were today and we got to get sworn in tomorrow, we would hit the ground running. And I think all of what you see from my legislative record, from the story of my life and my family, and then my experience as a trial attorney down here in Hampton Roads, all of those things lend itself well to the Attorney General's office. And I think what's most important is that as we move ahead, as we look forward, we look to people who've got vision, who've got energy, who've got the passion to really take this office not only from where it is, but to the next level, but also to the people. I know that everybody here tonight was so excited about the fact that Joe Biden is now our president. And I am too, because we got to close the chapter of America's history with Donald Trump. And as we look ahead, Virginia gets to pick up that pen and write its new chapter. And we're the first election here in the country since then. And so I think we're going to be able to keep that momentum going. But I think this election is our opportunity to really reorient ourselves, redefine ourselves, to chart that new course. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And I hope that the message that our campaign is putting out there and the values and ideals that we hold dear will help people understand what we're all about and know that, it's more than just one person, that we're in this together. We're on that shared Virginia journey, standing shoulder to shoulder. And so whether you're 31 or 32 years old, or whether you're 60 something years old, no matter you're black, white, if you can do the job, great. And we hope that you do the best job possible. And I know that I'm ready right now.
Well, great. Well, Jay, thanks so much for sharing your story and why you're running, and thanks for also being concise, and really enjoyed hearing about what you want to do with the Attorney General office as well. But we're actually out of time for tonight, and we've kept people on for like an hour and 15 minutes already. So any final words for us, Jay?
Look, I'll just say thank you so much for the opportunity to join you all. Again, would love to have you guys join our campaign, jayjones.com, JAYJONES. And I hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Everybody, please be safe and well. And when you can, please go get vaccinated, because that's going to help us turn the corner so that we can do this in person sooner rather than later. So everybody stay well and take care, everybody.
Absolutely. And fingers crossed that everybody can get vaccinated soon. And thank you, Jay. And to everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our March live stream program. For our ADC members, we hope to see you next Monday night at 7:30 for our business meeting. And of course, next month, we hope that you will come back and participate in our almost annual ADC straw poll. Again, that's on Monday, April 5th. So please stay safe and have a good night.